No, what funds? What is his source of funding?
Okay.
How does he access that funding to do whatever he does? Two, how do we hold him accountable?
So when
and if it is for influencing values, he represents who and whose views?
You want to have this shot degenerate into a shouting match?
No.
Mwada, you will not speak.
Because
I will speak over your voice.
When you handle diplomacy, you represent who?
You are Samuju.
You represent who? And can you account for your funding? How do we hold you accountable?
Are you Samuju speak
How do
over
we hold
each
you
other?
accountable? And whose views do you represent in your diplomacy?
You want this to degenerate into a quarrel?
These are concerning issues.
That's what you're going to achieve.
Account for your funding. Who funds you?
Why is that your issue? I fund myself.
It is impossible to do public work.
You who account for your funding.
To do public work.
Who accounts your funding?
And who do you report to? When you disregard formal channels, you disregard formal channels, you purport to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you purport to be the ambassador, we can't know who funds you. Now you represent
for the money.
This is concerning.
The EU themselves have said you steal money. You NUP, you have stolen money. How can you claim to be fighting?
From where and from who?
The EU gives you money and you have stolen that money.
That is your public rhetoric and negative rhetoric.
It is the EU. So you as a NUP, have you accounted the money government gives you? You are here saying that you are an opposition person.
Why do you like to
on the government?
NUP
You denounce the government. Don't you earn a salary of 40 million? Don't you earn a salary of 40 million from government? The poor people who vote for you
we want to know
and 1,000
who funds you, Mwenda, to do public work.
Yes, we also
and
want
who
to
do you
know.
account to?
I want to know why do you sit in
You are
the
not an
parliament
ambassador.
of a government
You are not a minister. You are not an office of government.
40 million shillings a month.
Who funds you? Who do you report it
times
to?
more than every ordinary Ugandan. Please tell me.
Guys.
You sit in the government. You say this government is
But that's
dictatorship.
constitutional.
You earn 40
Those are
million.
elected.
Yes,
Those are
it is
elected
constitutional.
officials.
Exactly. It is constitutional. But is it right?
Those are elected
Is
officers.
it more right for case? Isn't it obvious that others would have interests and the interests may be different from ours? Why do we allow outsiders to insert themselves in our politics? Now let me come to the issue of General Saleh. General Saleh is, you are saying is not a government official, is actually a senior presidential advisor. He is also the coordinator of Operation World Scotia. Those are government positions. He's also a member of the Army High Command and he's a permanent member. But even informally, he's a brother of the president. He's a hero of the NRM struggle. All these aspects give him incredible influence, access and influence. He can call his brother anytime and he has influence. Let me tell you, there is no system in the world, Mwada, which works purely on formal institutions. All states have formal structures, but these formal structures are embedded in informal networks and ties. It is the informal networks and ties that allow formal structures to work. I'll give you an example. The world almost came to an end during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. At the height of the crisis, President Kennedy could not get many issues through the Army and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He sent his brother, Robert, to meet a man called, Anatoly Dublin, who was the Soviet ambassador. They sent him at night. He went and negotiated an agreement between Kennedy and Khrushchev, his brother, outside of the structures of government, and he even went in a taxi in order to disguise it. Even in Britain, you can see there was a man called Alistair Cobb whom Tony Blair fired. There is a book written by the chief of staff of Tony Blair. The guy is called Jonathan Powell. He wrote a book called The New Machiavelli. You can see even these advanced countries that have had institutions for 500 years still have informal channels through which you can conduct diplomacy. Right now, there is a man who is conducting Trump's diplomacy actually. He has been to DRC. He is always in Russia. I see him in Turkey and Saudi Arabia. What is the guy called? He's not a former employee of government. He's a friend of Trump. Clinton had a black man.
He's a father-in-law to one of his daughters.
Yeah, he's father-in-law to one of his daughters, yes. Clinton had a friend, what was that man, black man called? Who always handled his diplomacy. He was not in the government. Vernon Jordan, Vernon something. Jordan Vernon something. So the use of informal channels to achieve formal objectives is a common practice in diplomacy.
Deep state is not our word. It's their word.
It is their word.
Yes.
I have been involved, for example, in relations between Uganda and Rwanda. Because I have a good relationship with President Kagame, I have a good relationship with President Museveni, and I can carry messages in between. So sometimes state institutions are paralyzed or not the best suited positions to work. But always these formal institutions, rather informal institutions, must reinforce formal institutions. So formal institutions don't work in a vacuum, Mwenda. When you come to power, you will find... Hold a second.
Information.
I do not disturb your presentation. Even when you are choosing
just information. I told democratic institutions and constitutional establishments, including ministries. Now you are seeing him confessing live that he has been engaged in diplomacy. And for us who are keeping government in check, we have a mission.
How do you keep Andrew in check?
we have a mission, an embassy in Rwanda with a diplomat and the staff. In fact, he's even a general.
Can I finish?
Now, it is facilitated and funded with a vote on taxpayers' money to execute diplomatic work and diplomacy. Now, when I hear that, it is now Mwenda doing their work, when we are also paying diplomats there, that's dismantling democratic and governance institutions. We cannot abet it. We cannot abet it.
Honorable, allow him his time.
Yes. So, first of all, you can clearly see he has not listened to me. I have explained to him, both theoretically and empirically, that formal institutions cannot work alone. They need informal ties. I can tell you. And I have given examples of so many governments in the developed world. So is this man, Vernon Jordan, who was Clinton's handler, who was not in the government, was he undermining America's democracy? This father-in-law of Trump's whatever, who is handling these peace negotiations, is he undermining American democracy? This guy, Alistair Campbell, who was helping out of government but working with Tony Blair to promote, no country can work without those informal connections. That's so important. And I have told you that informal networks can reinforce formal institutions. Left alone, formal institutions cannot succeed. And I have seen many international negotiations where somebody from outside the system helped. I'll give you another example how they resolve. Hold a second, my grand, please. I believe those are our problems. We should address them as Ugandans, and we should refuse foreigners to insert themselves in our affairs. That is my principle. And to you, Nicholas, if you read anything I have written, I oppose all forms of aid, whether it is humanitarian, whether it's technical, whether it's financial. You can read over the last 20 years, I have written so much about aid. I believe financial aid, for example, So what I'm saying that even interference in human rights undermines our democratic process because it hijacks the political struggle from the domestic to the international. I will give you an example, and these people of NUP are interested in power, not in democracy, I can tell you. That's why they would invite these Muzungu to get involved. You see, if you are given financial aid, so the government of Uganda depends on World Bank, IMF, and other donors for money, then it has no interest in engaging me and you to build political institutions and public policies that can increase our productivity so that it can collect more tax revenues from us. It loses interest in us because the productive margin in its search for revenue does not lie in our farms, in our factories, in our gardens, our ranches. It lies in begging international donors. If very powerful rich countries come and say they are the ones supporting him, you see, democracy grows through fits and starts through over a very long period of time. And it's a journey, not a destination. I could give the history of the US. The Declaration of Independence 1772. Their constitution, which says all men are born equal, is 1789. But in 1789, only rich white men could vote. Poor white men could not vote. Black people were slaves. Native Americans could not vote. Women could not vote. You see, but through struggle, in 1830, they accepted adult male white suffrage. 1865, they abolished slavery. 1868, this 190 years later, is when America passes a law saying nobody will be stopped from voting on the basis of their former condition of servitude or their race. But black people never got a right to vote until 1965, 150 years later. You see, so the struggle for Uganda's democracy is a struggle we should be involved in. We will not achieve what we want in our lifetime, but we recognize that we are always part and parcel of the struggle to expand democratic rights. Now, how does foreign interference undermine this struggle? And this is not to criticize the opposition in Uganda, it's just to criticize the structural, it raises a structural point. Because if I am Kyagulanyi, I am Mwenda here, there is a powerful country supporting me, it may, recognizing that I'm backed by the Americans and the Europeans, it may reduce my incentive to engage in negotiations and compromise with Museveni in order to achieve, maybe I may not achieve 100% of what I want, I may achieve 10%, but 10% is a good progress for us. The Americans up to now are still involved in the democratic struggle. They have not arrived there. So, backed by powerful, the Batoro call it kuterektigi. I don't know how I can translate it in English. Is to give somebody such confidence that you take away the incentive to compromise. But democracy is built on compromise. Let's come to humanitarian aid. Let's come to practical everything. Whenever foreigners insert themselves in our issues, they may be even well-intentioned, but they change the structure of incentives. Because if you know that whenever there is a famine, somebody will come and give you food, then the government's incentive to build institutions and policies to guard against famine are reduced. Because you know something will come from outside. So, avoid foreign interference in our affairs. Even Uganda's involvement in Somalia, DRC and Sudan, read my ratings. I've said let those Congolese fight until someone wins. Let the South Sudanese win. Uganda can never fix Congo, I can tell you, even if we stay there for 100 years. If we left Somalia today, Al-Shabaab will take over. And I've written articles suggesting that Uganda is stopping the internal process of Somalia from maturing, and that's why we are stuck there. Whatever Museveni benefits from it, whatever delusions possess his mind, we can never fix Somalia. Only Somalis can fix Somalia. Now, let me come to the points of international law. Responsibility to protect. Nicholas, who assigns this responsibility to who? Can Uganda undertake the responsibility to protect? Because as I said earlier, they went to Libya to protect against Gaddafi. But right now, people are being killed. Why are they not protecting? Why are they not exercising it in Israel? They say this whataboutism, but it tells you something. Why is there this selective application of international rules? If Uganda, from international law, which says respect sovereign equality and respect don't interfere in internal affairs, you say no, for us we have a rules-based international order. Who has set these rules? We can interfere to promote democracy and human rights. Who defines what a country is a democracy? I don't think the United States is a democracy. It's ruled by a few corporate barons. And other Americans are not saying that government. Should Uganda interfere? So these are tricks used by the powerful to disorganize the weak. And Africans should see that. But Africans are so internally divided. That is why IMF can come here and dictate policies. Our story is told by the CNN and the BBC and New York Times. Our hungry are fed by the World Food Program. Our poor are saved by Bono and Angelina Jolie. Tell me one aspect of our life that is not being shaped from outside. If you read the Muzungu literature at colonialism, they were saying we are children, and like all children, we should be governed permanently. So why don't we as Ugandans, I'm challenging you people in the push, why don't you feel that without these Americans, we can fight torture? We may not win today, but we can improve the situation of governance in our country. Why can't we fight for our democratic rights? Why do we, who helped the Americans or the British or the French? Who did it? Why do we expect others to come and help us? In any case, isn't it obvious that others would have interests, and the interests may be different from ours? Why do we allow outsiders to insert themselves in our politics? Now let me come to the issue of General Saleh. General Saleh